Hola chicos, hey guys, welcome to Dímelo Cantando con Isabella Chapini, coming to you from the UCFM studio situated in Underworld Country, a show where we talk about everything Latin American. This is episode 5. I'm here with a very special guest, of course, but our first recurring guest, Maya.
Woo, fan favorite!
Yes. So, what have you been up to?
I've been working on my classes.
Yes. I actually just finished my assessments and I could not feel more free. It got to a point where I was so happy about finishing. I finished, like, I would say at 1 a.m. And then after that, I celebrated for the rest of the night. Quite literally the rest of the night, because it wasn't until 7 a.m. that I went to sleep. I took a quick little nap. And now it's 10:50 here in the UCFM studio. So yeah, I did not get to sleep much, but yeah, it was worth it. I think I deserved that after.
You do.
Yeah. I was working on like so many assignments at once. And what's funny is that because we went to the Afro Jams like event, which was really fun.
Ooh.
Yes. Yeah, that was like a good 3 or 4 hours. I did not use for
3 or 4.
We were there for
we were there for so long.
Wait, yeah.
So
I got there at 10 and we left at 3.
Yeah.
Oh
Mind
my
you,
God.
there was also preing beforehand.
Mm-hmm. Well, I wasn't a part of that. So,
That's true.
Yeah. But that's crazy. Wait. That is
I
7
know.
hours.
Listen, our blood. It's in our blood, guys.
It really is.
Yeah. Before we were leaving, Naya, which is a friend of mine that I was going with, was like looking at her phone. She was like, "Do we gotta go now?" It's like, "This is when the pre starts." She was like, "I don't want to be there for 6 hours," and I was like, "Oh, I didn't even think about that." But that didn't change my mind.
Yeah. It doesn't change anything. Also, the first thing that I did as soon as I hit the submit button on my last assessment was blast reggaeton and start like dancing in my room. I even put like the little party lights. It
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I know what you're talking about.
Yes, dude. Because I have like an LED thingy. You know, like the sunset lamps that were viral for a bit. Like I got one at Kmart
you
for
thought
like.
You were getting one. Oh no, it has a setting, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's really fun. This is so off topic, but it doesn't have like a pure white setting, and it like really annoys me. Yeah, whatever. But yeah, Afro Jams was really fun. Maya and I are known for, going to a lot of places and just.
What are you about to say?
I was gonna say tearing up the dance floor. But it's true. Literally, like, there's this one event that we went to called the Culture Flip.
I loved Culture Flip.
Yes. So it was at Sideway. Do you want to explain a little bit more about it? Because I feel like you knew a little bit more about it going in.
So it is put together by, I don't know if he's still at ANU, if he's an alumni, but there's this guy that puts it together, and basically the whole premise is that it's an entire lineup of DJs that are people of color and usually from a lot of different backgrounds. So we had a black DJ, we had indigenous DJs, we had a Palestinian DJ, stuff like that. And they'll all kind of put their own spin into popular music at the time, music from their culture, stuff like that. It's super, super cool.
It's really fun. And also I feel like the vibe of the room changes a lot depending on like who is DJing, because obviously like there's a bunch of different, because I think I forget the order, but I think it was like the Palestinian duo first, so everyone was like because they were like the Palestinian like that song played, I remember. And then the second one was like playing a lot of Afro beats, and like that was really, really, really fun.
Michael Jackson. Oh my
yeah.
I about lost my mind.
And then I remember, so I can't remember if it was the third or like the last DJ, but
it was shout out Tevin Ho. I know what you're about to say. The story, it was Tevin Ho. Look that guy up. He's a good. That's the DJ we stayed all night at Afro Beats for because they put him at the end, and I was like, damn.
Yeah. But yeah, basically he put Bad Bunny on. Yeah. And it's so funny because like I don't know. I feel like in Australia I don't really expect, unless it's like a Latin function, to hear reggaeton. So I remember Titi Me Preguntó started playing, and I know like the entire fast part or whatever, and it was so funny because, well, during like the Afrobeats one, you were like, they knew I was coming or whatever, like you like yelled it out, and then as soon as like Bad Bunny started playing, I was like, they knew we were coming, and then like, and then I just started like scream, like genuinely. I feel like even at reggaeton nights, like the nights hosted by Fiction, I don't really yell the lyrics or whatever. Like sometimes I do, but not really. But for this one, I put my lungs into it. Like I really did.
And it was really funny because it was like we were clearly the only two Latin people in that whole room. So it's like if you had like an aerial view, yeah, you would just see two little beep, beep, beep. Yeah.
It's so funny.
And the best part too was after I was already satisfied, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was already a good night. Then that was even better, right? It was legendary. It was going in the books, right? And the set goes on a little longer, and he starts playing bachata. That's what I actually like. Genuinely, I don't remember what he mixed this into, but I actually screamed. Yeah. Like, I was like, ah!
You literally like immediately bent your knees, started just dancing.
No, and then I screamed, and then we both looked at each other. We immediately went, he knew we were coming, and we started like, oh my god. I hope you don't have to. I hope I didn't yell into this.
It's like, yeah, warning. I've been adjusting the levels because we were talking a little bit loud, but it's okay. I like the excitement. But yeah, it was just, I feel like it was after the fact, because I'm telling you, like, I screamed the entire, like, fast part of that one song, but I realized, like, I was screaming it, and then I looked around, and it's like the music wasn't that loud. So I'm sure even the people on, like, the other side of the room could hear me yell this song, and I feel like, honestly, that's okay. I'm perfectly okay. You know what was funny, too? Wasn't it, like, someone that was, like, after we danced bachata, he was like, oh my god, what is
yes.
He's like, oh my god, what is that? And you're like, it's bachata.
It's from my culture. Oh god.
Yeah, that's so funny. But yeah, I feel like a lot of the places or like the events that we go to, maybe they're not outwardly queer events, but we do go to a lot of queer spaces, I would say.
We don't chase, we attract.
Exactly. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I thought it would be interesting to kind of discuss queerness and some other stuff on this episode.
Intersectionality.
Yes. Man. Queerness.
Why did I think you were just gonna go men?
Well, that as well, but I just feel like queerness and Latin America just don't really, at least in my mind, I feel like it's changing now, especially as more queer people kind of are more like in the spotlight, especially in music and in media too. But yeah, I just feel like growing up, like being Venezuelan and being queer, like that just did not mesh at all, especially because I feel like, okay, I feel like homophobia and transphobia in Latin America mainly roots from religion, and I have some stats pulled up, and well, I'm not even gonna say the numbers. Let's just say it's overwhelmingly Christian, and to be specific, it's 57% Catholic, which is the religion that I was born into, and I feel like that was particularly traumatic. I feel like, well, I will say, despite everything, I think it was cool to go to a Latin church because I feel like it was like a lot of, it felt like a big community and stuff like that, and I really liked that aspect of it. But in terms of growing up and just always kind of knowing I was queer and just being a little too scared to say anything about it, that was so fun. Especially because so when I say I was Catholic, like, I mean it. Like, I was baptized, I had my first communion. I even did my confirmation. And actually the moment that I decided I was no longer going to be religious, which, like, I have nothing against like people that are religious or whatever. It's just like, this is my personal story or whatever. But I remember I was in this class it was called like CCD. It's like, I guess, like Catholic education or whatever. And it was preparing us for confirmation, which is like one of, like, I think the 7 sacraments. So it's like a big deal, I guess. My parents were telling me. So I wasn't really, like, very keen on, like, getting confirmed, I guess. Like, I was pretty religious, but I was just, I wasn't in a rush or anything. But, everyone else my age was doing it, and my parents were like, you need to do it. It was so backwards because they were like, you need to do it, and then after you've done your confirmation is when you can decide whether or not you're not going to go to church anymore. So they kind of, like, used this as, like, this final thing that we had to do, especially for my brother, because my brother was so done.
Oh, dang.
My brother tapped out, like, way before I did, because I feel like he never really was that, like, Catholic or really religious. But yeah, my parents were like, yeah, you just have to get confirmed, and after that, like, you can decide for yourself. Which, for those that don't know, confirmation is literally confirming your faith. So you saying, like, oh, I want to do this.
Which is so interesting that it happens at such a young age.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did it when I was, like, 14 or something.
That's not even, like, that's quite older than everyone around me.
Really?
Yeah. And I don't know if maybe, because when I was, like, very young, like, early primary school, I lived in Canada. Mm-hmm. And I went to a Christian school, so maybe that's, like, maybe a factor. Mm-hmm. But yeah, a lot of kids were doing it in my age, around, like, 3rd grade and whatnot.
Wait,
I'm dead serious. Or no, maybe that was first communion.
No, okay, that's first communion.
You're so right.
I'm,
You're,
like,
literally so right.
I'm like, girl, if people were getting confirmed in 3rd grade,
I was like, this is great. No, and I remember too, my parents, like, they were, honestly, I don't know, they were pretty lax about it. They always let me kind of choose. We never were the type of family that, like, went to church regularly. My dad would sometimes put, like, Joel Osteen on TV and just watch that himself. Because, well, okay, this is funny. I was gonna say, like, they were, my parents are religious, but they never believed in, like, the whole, like, huge, like, church thing, which I think is completely respectable and valid. Aside from the fact that my dad watched Joel Osteen, but I guess that's another conversation for another day. But regardless, I remember they asked me, like, if I wanted to do my first communion, and I was like, nah. Like, and genuinely, I was really religious as well at the time. I think I was just lazy, dog. I was so serious. I was like,
nah, not really.
I was like, are you sure? Like, what if you want to, like, get married or something? I was like, I'll figure it out. And when I get married, like, I don't know.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, no, I can't relate. My family was the type to, like, go to church every single Sunday, so that became a part of my routine. And I would say, like, I was pretty into it, and it wasn't until this one class, like, everything was going swell, and I think it was literally one of the last classes before I don't know, like, getting confirmed or whatever. Yeah. That we had this entire thing on, like, sexuality. Yeah. So, like, me personally, I feel like I've always known. I never really, like, said anything or acted on anything until, like, way after. But, like, yeah, I kind of knew already. And again, like, up until this point, I was pretty religious. I was like, yeah, for sure. Like, everything that they would say, I was like, yeah, for sure, whatever. And then I remember, this was so traumatic that I remember specifically how they did it. So they did, like, this thing where they grabbed a jar and they put 3 different, like, pieces of paper, 3 different items in it. And it was supposed to represent all things that you needed in order to I guess like have sex like in a way that was right under God or whatever. So one of them was pleasure, another one was like children or whatever, like the possibility of having children. And then I think the other one was like it has to be with another person, like you can't do it alone or whatever. And I just remember the whole argument being like, actually there was no argument, and I think that's what like really made me like there really wasn't. Because also like, sorry, if I'm really putting this into question, it's like, why those three things in specific? Like that makes no sense, but whatever. But yeah, basically like the argument that my teacher was like putting forward was you can be gay, but you can't act on it. And I was like, hold on.
What does that mean?
It means like you can, I mean, I guess it means what I've heard my entire life. He just made it seem nicer. You know what I mean? Where it's like, oh, you can be this way. It's okay to be this way, but you can't act on it. And I feel like those actions also included thoughts, which I'm like, if you are not straight, you know what I mean? Like, whatever. So, yeah. That was so silly and goofy. And I just remember in the class, I feel like it just kind of hit me all at once, where I was just like, this makes no sense. And it's like, it's almost like hypocritical, because I'm like, how is your entire religion based on like love and like respecting or like caring for your neighbor or whatever, like treating people like your brothers and your sisters and your siblings? But I was just like, this is so dumb. And I feel like it just clicked. Like, I just remember sitting in that room at that moment and just being like, I don't believe in this anymore, actually. And it was such like like it was such a breakthrough thing. And I feel like I didn't fully process what had happened until literally, and like, I don't know why it ended up happening on these days, but like the day that I fully was like, I'm no longer Catholic, was when I was sitting in mass for my confirmation, and I was about to go up. I went up and I did it because I was like, okay, like whatever.
You were like, nah, I take it back.
I take it back, actually. Boom, mic drop. No. Yeah, it was just like this. I just remember like sitting there and just being like, this is actually so BS. And it was just that, like a moment of silence where I was just like by myself, and I was like, I actually want to get up right now. Which I was never the type to like, even like checking my phone during mass, I found that to be kind of disrespectful. Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't even do that. But like that day I was checking my phone. I was just like, bro, I want to go home. Like and it was just, again, like it was just so wild the way and everything happened, like just the timeline. It was kind of cinematic, guys. My life is a movie.
Kind of poetic.
Yeah. But yeah, so anyway, going back to Latin America as a whole, I feel like because whatever. I mean, if you really think, because the way that I think about religion is just like the way in which people are going to interpret whatever holy text that they have is heavily going to depend on like the current times and what is acceptable in like the current times, like socially. So for example, like technically it's a sin. Well, I feel like at this point everything is sinful, but but for example, like getting a tattoo is sinful. Like it's technically a sin, because it's like, oh, your body's a temple, like whatever. I don't remember the exact like verbiage, but it's just like, obviously nobody pays attention to that anymore, because tattoos, at least, well, not so much in Latin America, but well, they are actually, but not as much as like the US or like, I don't know, some other places.
Oh, like taboo?
Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Like, it's just like people get tattoos, but I would say like not as often as like Americans do, or like, I don't know what's another country that's pretty.
Australia.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. But yeah, so I would not be, because even now, like, at least in the US, it's becoming a thing where it's like, oh, like oh, our church is open to the LGBTQIA plus community, you know, God loves you, whatever. So I feel like it's definitely going to change over time. But yeah, I feel like right now in Latin America, it's a mix of, I guess, those religious ideals and also just the super, super strict gender roles that are in, I don't know, just like so deeply rooted in the culture. So, yeah, I would say the majority of people, at least in like the motherland, like if I'm talking about Venezuela right now, I would say that like a lot, like the majority of people are pretty like homophobic, transphobic. Even last night I was watching this thing, like these videos by this one Venezuelan creator that I follow, and like I think he made like 3 homophobic jokes in 3 different videos. Not each, but like every single one. Every single one he made a homophobic joke, and I'm like, dude, come on. Like you really didn't have to, you know? So yeah, it can be hard to exist in Latin spaces as a queer person.
Catching strays left and right.
Yeah. So LOL. Yeah. What do you feel about the matter, Maya?
What a broad question. Guys, homophobia is bad.
Don't do that,
Don't
please.
do it.
Yeah.
Guys, don't cut it out.
I don't know. I think it's interesting because it's happened to me multiple times where I will have a conversation with a Latin woman and they will reveal, and like it's usually like older women, and they will reveal the most like, what's it called, like incriminating thing.
Gay shit.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Like, okay, actually I won't talk about this because I want to respect my mom's privacy, I guess.
Yeah.
But I remember
we could both call our moms out, right?
yeah, 100%. But I remember just talking to this one woman that I worked with, and it's so crazy because like it ends up just being like, oh, it was a phase, you know, like, oh, I was confused.
Silly.
Yeah, I was so young and silly and I didn't know what I was doing. But to me, like, I think like it was just crazy because like these women will be like married with kids, like whatever, and then they'll just be like, yeah, let me show you a picture of what I looked like when I was young. I'm telling you, like short hair, extremely mask presenting, like, and then they would talk about this time where they were like clearly kind of like decentering men from their lives, like they were just kind of like doing what they wanted, and this, I feel like this has to do with like both gender and sexuality, but like yeah, just they looked so free, and whenever they talk about it, they sound like they were free at that point in their lives, and it's just so heartbreaking.
I have an extremely vivid memory of me walking through the mall one day with my mom, and we were walking past this store, and she was like, oh my god, that would look so pretty on you, you should get it, blah, blah, and being like, oh, I'm so glad me and my mom have the same style or whatever. And I just I vividly remember thinking to myself in that moment, because at that point, like, I knew a bunch of stuff about, you know, the way she used to do her hair, the jewelry she used to wear, like all this kind of stuff, and like how we both were inclined towards certain things and whatever, and that's why I love to go to the mall with my mommy and whatever. And it was like I remember the actual thought passing through my head of like, listen, I don't know where gayness comes from, but if it's hereditary, I got it from you. Like
that's so real. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's so weird because I feel like a lot of these people go through these things, but then they just don't consider it valid. So then they just end up like conforming later on and just like doing the whole, you know, getting married, having kids. Like I feel like that's like a very like it just feels like, this is like such an interesting way to put it, I guess, but it's just like it feels like you know, they're themselves, whatever, and they're like exploring themselves, whatever. And then it's just like at some point, I feel like what ends up happening is like they think, okay, I gotta lock in. Like,
oh my god,
like,
what a way to say that.
I know, but it's just like, it's kind of like, okay, if I don't like, I guess lock in, I don't know how else
I'm gonna be an old hag.
Exactly. Like there's just there's a heavy emphasis on traditions in Latin America, and I feel like that includes the whole like being married, having kids. Like that's like
different countries even have their own slang for that. Like I don't know about y'all, but I'm pretty sure we have jamona.
Is that like a person?
Like a woman who's like aged where it's about time she should have been married and she's not, type of thing.
Yeah, we probably have a word. I don't think I know it, but that's interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's like a very big thing, and I feel like,
and might I say, I feel like you can even see remnants of this if you catch the right moment later on in life. Like again, like I don't want to tell specific stories, obviously, because that's my mom's business.
Yeah.
But I do remember when I came out to my mom, there was so much fear stricken within her.
Yeah.
And it, you know, to the extent where it was like, you know, part of it was kind of understandable based on her upbringing and stuff of like, oh my God, but like what's going to happen to you? How are people going to treat you?
Yeah.
Whatever. I don't want your life to be more difficult than it already is, because intersectionality. I'm also black, and a woman. So she was like, "Why pick them?
Pick a struggle."
She was like, "Maya, stop before it's too late."
She was trying to save you.
But anyway, like one of the main things that haunted her like a lot was like, how are we going to tell your grandma? Because when she was young, I think there was something sort of similar where my grandma used to ask her like, oh, like, what, are you gay? Or like something like that, like whatever. And yeah, I don't know. That was very, it was interesting because it was almost like it was going through the generation to me.
I feel that as well. I feel like my parents' reactions to anything remotely queer that I've done just says a lot. And there's so many things. Because also, like, I'm technically not even out to my parents officially. I feel like at this point, they know. They definitely know. But they're just in denial. Because, again, it's like, I feel like accepting that your kid is gay is, like, the end of the world for Latin parents.
Do you think
that they're gonna listen to this and be like, oh man?
No. I was actually gonna say, do you think they've ever suspected me?
I don't know.
Because I'm not gonna lie, there have been times that my mom has been like, are you guys dating?
What?
Like, no.
Not even your mom, bro. We can't. I can't. So that's another thing too. Like, we always get mistaken for a couple because we're always going places and stuff because we're besties. we kept joking about roommates. Getting shirts that says like, I'm gay, for not for them. Stupid. Yeah. So funny. No, not your mom too, bro. What are we gonna do? That's so funny. No, my parents are so in denial that I don't think they would have even thought about it. But
do you think they know that I'm gay?
I don't know. They probably don't. Because
we act the same, and I feel like
by the transitive property. Yeah, I don't know. I also feel like I'm at your house more than you're at my house, so that might also be a factor. But yeah, so basically, I made this documentary about gender and clothing, like the relationship between gender and clothing in my last year of high school. So like year 12. And I was really excited to make the documentary and everything, but I was not looking forward to my parents' reactions of it. Because didn't your parents also watch it and they were like, they said fluidity a little too many times or whatever?
Yes, because the thing is, like, you made that, and it was one of, like, the really, really good ones of that year. And
Thanks.
You're welcome. And so it got posted, and I was like, I have an opportunity. Because, okay, back in middle school, a friend of mine went through a very intense Todrick Hall phase.
No way.
I don't know if she'll watch this, but I love and miss you. She showed me the album, like the visual album that he did that was like, oh, like America, but if being gay was actually the norm and being straight was weird and whatever. Yeah. And like it was this whole, like, it was almost like a little mini movie to go along with the album. And I remember I showed that to my dad, like, you know.
Yeah, like wink wink, not wink.
And my dad was like, this is the gay agenda. Oh. And
our kids are being indoctrinated.
He had never said anything about this type of thing before, so it would just hit me out of nowhere. Yeah. I was like, what? He was like, this is like influencing you or whatever. And I was like, oh, brother. Oh, no. So then when the opportunity came again in high school, when you released your thing, I was like,
let's see.
Let's do this one more time. Especially because this time it was like a documentary, and it showed people's experiences, and it even showed inadvertently like somebody getting harassed like while you're filming. That was an insane, intense. Bro, shout out this short film documentary. Whatever, I call everything short films. Shout out this. You guys should watch it.
It's called Counterconformity. It's on the
YouTube.
On the YouTubes.
It
on the
was
YouTube
actually
somewhere.
It's really good.
I was there.
I want you to, the whole time you're watching this, just remember in your head a high schooler made that, bro. It's like crazy.
Thank you. But I was there. Yeah. I was the one filming when we got harassed. That was so crazy. Yeah. Because this documentary was like a way for me to kind of explore my gender through other people's experiences and just kind of come to terms with things and like whatever. Like that was like a very exploratory part of my life or whatever. So I feel like it's cool to have a thing to go back and remember it. But yeah, that was so silly, like getting harassed. And, you know, not being the subject of the harassment, you know, like I wasn't actually getting harassed myself. It was the person I was filming. But obviously, like, this up until, like, this is a little bit more on, like, how the filming process went. But up until that day, everything with this documentary was going beautifully, and it was just so like, oh my god, yay, yippee, like whatever, like it's so good that people get to express themselves the way that they want and all this stuff. And that happened, and I was like, ooh, maybe, well, I knew it wasn't all butterflies and rainbows, but that was like a very clear experience where I was like, oh, okay, like this does happen to people. And like I had seen, you know, like media about it or whatever, like in movies or like maybe in I don't know, like news headlines or whatever, but it's very different when you are there.
There's like very few feelings that can compare to the feeling of like being somewhere and then suddenly realizing like you're not as safe as you thought you were.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, basically all I'm gonna say is when it came out, I posted the documentary and I left my house because I was like, I do not. What was crazy too is I posted, I was leaving, and I heard the beginning of the documentary playing on my dad's phone. Shoo. And he was like, oh, you posted it, like whatever. Yeah. And I was like, yep, okay, bye. You know, I was like, bye, see you guys. And yeah, I just remember coming home that day, and the only thing my dad had to say was like, oh yeah, that guy wearing a skirt, like that was really interesting. And I'm like, gosh. That's all you took from that 10-minute documentary about like whatever. So yeah, it was crazy. And then when we went to a film festival,
wait before you tell that story, because I think that's the most impactful part. When I showed my parents, I actually showed them both at the same time, and I was like staring at them like, how are you taking it? And when it finished, I asked my dad like what he thought, and he was just kind of like, I don't really like that. They said the word fluid a lot.
Yeah.
I don't really like that, you know, because in the thing it was like, fashion is like a fluid thing. It doesn't necessarily have whatever. And obviously that also hints toward gender being fluid and whatever.
Yeah.
My dad picked that up and he was just kind of like,
Yeah.
I was like, God.
I don't know about that one, guys.
And I remember too, my mom was like silent the whole time, and I would kind of look at her like, "Hey, help me out, bro."
Like, step in, get in the field.
Come on. Right? Like I'm getting jumped by one singular man, my father. And so he was like, "No, I don't really like that, but you know, whatever, it's fine." And then I kind of was just like looking at my mom, waiting for her to say something, and she was like, "I agree," and that's all she said, and I was like,
yeah. You know, it's crazy because, okay, so I'll just quickly say something. My dad, we went to a film festival because the film got in. And so it was crazy because, like, my dad paid for, like, the plane tickets and the hotel, which was, like, expensive. I'm, like, really surprised that we got to go. And it just felt like he was very supportive. And then when it came down to it, you know, there was a screening. Also, there was a Q&A, and they asked me, like, oh, how'd you come up with this idea? I'm like, am I about to come out to my parents, bro, in front of an entire crowd at a film festival? What even is my life? Like, whatever. I ended up, like, really indirectly wording everything, so it could be taken either way. But, what's it called? So in film festivals and stuff, typically you'll have, like, grand jury winners, and then you'll have screening audience favorites. So people will vote after the screening and say, like, oh, this was the film that everyone liked from this screening or whatever. And, dude, I watched my dad vote for another film. Oh. Yeah, which is fine. Like, he's entitled to his opinion, and I also voted for another film. But my mom...
you do it, it's humble.
My mom was like, yo, what? Like, she saw that, like, he had voted for another film, and she was like, dude, what is your problem? Because I know he just didn't agree with the messaging of the documentary. But yeah, there's, like, so many things where I also felt like my mom, like, genuinely either liked the message or the message made her think, you know, about it a little bit harder. But yeah, it's like this weird thing where it's like, I feel like Latin women are a lot more prone to having certain experiences and then just completely shoving them down for survival. And it's just like,
yeah.
That's
another thing about when I came out to my mom, because the whole reconciliation process
oh God,
afterwards, like, it took a while. Like, she had to really sit with that for a long time and just be in her room. Like, I remember she would go to her room and she would, like, write stuff in her notes app, and, like, you know what I mean? Like, that was like a process for her, I feel like. And sometimes she would just walk out of the room and be like, okay, so how do you know? You know what I mean? Yeah. And I'd be like, because I could tell she was comparing it to her own experience, because she would always be like, well, I've seen this or whatever. So how come, like, what makes you come to that conclusion? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know. It's crazy. I will say, though, despite things still not being widely accepted in Latin America, I feel like now there's been kind of like a shift in narrative, and that's been thankfully... Wow, I'm really hungry. I don't know if you heard that.
I did, but I wasn't gonna say anything.
I'm so hungry, guys. But yeah, basically, I feel like there's been a lot of different people coming into the spotlight in terms of music, especially in reggaeton. And I feel like that's been able, maybe not to change public opinion, but definitely make it safer for queer people to exist in Latin spaces. So, for example, I mean, I love the fact that there's a lot of Venezuelans that are kind of doing this right now. But for example, Arca, she's trans and she's a super well-known producer and artist. It's a lot of experimental reggaeton. It's like, I think it's like called neo perreo. And it took me a little bit to get into it, but I honestly really, really like Arca's music. And Arca was, I think, she was born in Venezuela, then she moved to Texas. And then for her teenage years, she went back to Venezuela and lived there for a couple years. And then I think now she lives in Spain. And I wanted to bring this up because I feel like Venezuela is in a very particular spot right now because a lot of Venezuelans have been exiled. And that means that a lot of us are in countries where queerness is more acceptable. And I feel like because of that, there's more Venezuelan artists making music, making movies, whatever. And I feel like that really makes you think, like, okay, maybe it's not Latin culture, like, maybe it's not what country you were born in, but, like, just your environment. You know what I mean? And, for example, like, there's this one artist, well, like, he's a musician, and he's also an actor, but his name is Omar Rudberg, and he's Venezuelan and Swedish, and he moved to Sweden when he was really young, and he is actually one of the lead roles in Young Royals, which is this one queer show on Netflix, which you should watch if you have not. If you are queer, you need to watch Young Royals. It's so good. But yeah, I found out about Young Royals actually because I watched this interview with him and his co-star Edwin, and they were tasting Venezuelan meals. So hallaca, they were tasting cachapa, empanadas and stuff like that. And I was like, oh my God, like I never see Venezuelan culture be highlighted because I feel like Dominican Republic, like Puerto Rico, like whatever, like they always get a lot of attention because I don't know, I feel like you guys are everywhere in terms of like artists and stuff that are really popular. Also, I feel like they're physically closer to the US, and like I feel like that might also play a role in like
the cultural exchange.
Yeah. Like I feel like more people know about like Puerto Rican culture or Dominican culture than they would know about, for example, like Venezuelan culture or Argentinian culture. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. But anyway, I was so happy to see like Venezuelan food be talked about on an interview. And yeah, I looked into the show and I was like, oh my God, this is a queer show. This is everything. And I literally I binged it in one night, which is crazy because it's 3 seasons, by the way. Yeah. And I'm not a rewatcher, but I went back and watched some of my favorite episodes. And I feel like seeing a Venezuelan, which there's like parts in the script where he's speaking in Spanish. Yes. And to see like a Latin queer person,
aren't they supposed to be like little European princes or something like that?
No, it's the Edwin guy is supposed to be the prince, and then Simon, which oh my God, every single like Venezuelan character is called Simon. It's so funny.
Like that's so true.
Yeah. But yeah, basically, they never specify like where he's from. But it's kind of implied that he's an immigrant. And it's just like seeing that, like an immigrant, a Latin immigrant that's also queer, being one of the lead roles in the show, I was like, this is everything. And I feel so represented right now. And I feel like that's why I was just so hooked on the show. So yeah, I feel like there's a lot of, guys, the tides are shifting slowly. And I feel like also having, like I mentioned earlier, having Latinos be like exiled from their countries also can actually help push that. So yeah, I don't know if you have anything else to add to that. I kind of like went on a little rant there, but
yeah, no, I needed to let you talk your ish about Young Royals. I haven't watched it yet.
You should.
Yeah. We are back.
Yes.
And I don't know. I was kind of thinking about previously in the conversation, talking about my dad and sort of his reaction to things. It was just very hard for me to sort of reconcile. I think if we go back to the very beginning of the conversation, like even when I was really, really little, I tried to like find logical justifications for things always. Like, even though I was like extremely religious in those few years of primary school, I always was like, but then, you know, like, if God has a plan for everything, and if God makes everybody like with a purpose or whatever, then God made gay people, right? And then I was like, you know what? Yes, this makes sense, because sometimes straight people have babies and they don't take care of those babies. So that's why God made gay people to take the babies from them.
We were made to adopt, guys.
We were made to take straight people's babies.
Please don't take that out of context. We're not stealing any children.
I need media training. Like, genuinely, I think, I mean, anyway, needless to say, that was like the beginning of me being like, a lot of this doesn't make sense to me, and I'm actually going to stop. And then, like, when it came to my dad's reaction as well, like, he sort of always seemed like he was in the camp of, like, you're being influenced and it's not natural, and there's like this like agenda or whatever. And first of all, I was like, what is the agenda though? Like, to do what? Because he never be gay, do crime. There's some people who are like, oh yeah, it's to like destroy society. My dad's never said that. You know, so I'm like, what do you think the goal is of making kids gay? And
who is doing this and why?
It was like, above that, I was kind of like, why? He's always raised me very intentionally with the knowledge and perception that, like, listen, in this world, you are a black woman. You are going to be put in XYZ place by people. You need to carry yourself in this way. This is going to affect you in this way. Like, he's always been he would turn on the History Channel and always like call me to his room to watch stuff, you know? And so I'm like, why are we not keeping the same energy in relation to this stuff? And especially as a black man who is so aware of his stance in America as a black man, and your daughter being a black woman, I think we have bigger fish to fry than the gays in the community. You know what I mean? I don't think that's the problem that we need to be focusing on. But somehow that has always been such an issue. Like, I could never go, before any of my family knew anything, I couldn't go to like the family reunions or whatever without like randomly catching a stray from the domino table, you know, from somebody making a joke, in the same way that the same thing would happen, you know, calling each other negra and whatever. So I kind of feel like homophobia and colorism are like intertwined in a very specific way. Which is so fun for me because I get to live with both of them. And not even to really that much of an extent, because I also need to acknowledge that, like, I'm pretty light. I guess I would consider myself, everybody always asks me, do you consider yourself light skinned? I would say yes, I guess. Like, I don't really know. I clearly look like a mezcla of something, right? So I wouldn't face as much hardship as somebody who is dark skinned, which is why I would say, like, yeah, I would identify myself as light skinned. And that's just such another issue on top of that. Like, I don't even really know how to explain it. I feel like in such a short time, it's kind of hard to get to the root of. But even I have a cousin who's living in DR right now, he's going to university, and we'll like catch up on the phone. He'll tell me how things are on the island and stuff. And he was telling me, like, it's crazy because I'll literally have, like, in the year of our Lord 2024, I will literally have a friend come up to me and be like, nah, but you would never date like a negra, right? Like a negra. He's like, what are you talking about? Like, that doesn't matter to me. He's like apparently his friends are making jokes like, no, but what are you gonna do? And if you turn the lights off, you can't see her. Bruh. Like, I could never. And he's like, boy, first of all, you're black as hell. Like, you're dark. And then like, I'm not ubícate. And then he's like, I'm not that dark though. I'm not that dark. You know what I mean? Like, yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah, and you also, I mean, we've had some conversations about this, but you also mentioned that there's a bit of a divide between like African Americans, like black people in the US, and then Dominican people, and how they like don't want to associate with black Americans.
Yeah, it's interesting because I feel like it's very easy and quick to like pick up on black American culture and that sort of status and the N-word and stuff like that.
Which I've noticed is used a lot, like in Latin music. Like I've heard it like a couple times already, and I'm like, what?
Are you for real?
Yes. Like I think El Alfa was one of them.
El Alfa is Afro-Latino. That's a whole other debate. That's a whole other debate as to whether Afro-Latinos should be able to say it or not. Yeah. Actually, he put out a song recently. Okay. So
you were the one that sent it to me.
Yeah. Yeah, but I feel like beyond that, I hadn't heard it that much. Which is why it was so shocking to me. That
I have actually.
Boy, cuidado. Like,
yeah.
This is gonna cause some problems. But yeah, I don't know, and I think it's hard because I feel like I've always felt up until now where I'm really like deliberately doing work as a kid. I hold a lot of this as the reason why I feel as an adult so sometimes disconnected from my different like cultures and stuff, because it felt almost as if I had to choose between being Dominican, being a black person in America, and being queer.
Yeah.
Like the three, like I had to, were all like entirely separate things. And like, how do I don't even know. Like it was just it made things really, really difficult to kind of fully embrace any of those identities, especially like, for example, in a Dominican space, in a black space, I could never feel fully comfortable being queer. But in a queer space, a lot of those places are like overwhelmingly white, because when white people are the most like liberated, they have the most freedom to explore all these things, and not even necessarily that white people are like trailblazers. I feel like people of color are very much trailblazers in that sense, in terms of queer culture and stuff like that.
I feel like white people just steal.
But they set norms. You know what I mean? And I feel like my lightness as well plays a lot into what is acceptable for me that wouldn't be acceptable for a lot of other people, and how I can kind of try and skirt around those three spaces and try to explore them and piece them together, that I don't think a lot of people who are darker than me have the same amount of freedom or same amount of freedom from judgment from others and stuff like that. As well as I think like being a woman, just in general, because I think queerness is associated a lot with femininity and whatnot. I think if I was a man, it'd be raps for me. Like, it's quite difficult.
I also feel like it's important to. I remember I had a conversation with Hosian, which is
I love Hosian.
A mutual friend of ours, and he was talking about like exclusion in community, and how like, you know, community is this beautiful thing, and you can go to a space and, you know, feel at home, but if you don't fully fit the descriptions of that group, like for example, queerness and, you know, being a part of the Latin community is like one thing. It's like you can go to a Latin place and be like, oh, I feel at home, but then you really think about it and you're like, oh, I actually don't feel welcome here, like fully welcome here. So
right, like it invites, like everywhere you go, you're gonna face those moments where you randomly find out that you're not as safe as you thought.
Yeah. So LOL. Yeah, thanks for coming to our what is it? Our almost 1 hour long
what a note to end on.
Therapy session. Yeah, I feel like it's very important to discuss, though.
I hope this is cathartic. I hope at least some people find representation in what I'm saying. Yeah. Yeah. Because sure. I would have really liked that.
Yeah, I feel like people don't really talk about it.
I still would really like that. Yeah. I still don't see it.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of people don't talk about this stuff, especially in Latin spaces. So, yeah, I'm glad that we get the opportunity to talk about it and put it online and hope that other people can listen and feel heard and seen. So, anyway, thank you for coming. Maya, chatting with you is always
Thank you
a pleasure.
For having me.
Yeah, yippee. That is a wrap for episode 5.